why do you have so many different EQs in your mastering chain? And the honest answer is that each one of these EQs does a very specific thing, and it's not a case of one EQ does all, right? You could have an EQ that does pretty much everything that you need to do, but there's certain EQs have certain characteristics that are good for certain things. So for instance, this Vertigo VSE is good for a very, very low tonal kind of bottom end, 60, 40 hertz. And it's got the air band as well. And it's very good for the air as well. So that's what that one's good for. The Kush Clariphonic's great for bringing out the presence and bringing out the highs in a master. I've got the Buzz REQ 2.2, which is a kind of an all-round EQ. It's a very smooth EQ, lovely EQ, one of the best you'll ever hear. Beneath that, I've got the Golly Porter Grinder EQ, which is a basically it has mid-side option to it. So I use it as a mid-side EQ. The SPL PQ is a brilliant surgical EQ, 5 bands of really precision EQ. Over this side, we've got the Alicia Mus EQ. And each EQ has a different purpose. Each EQ is really good for certain things. The PQ, for instance, has a brilliant low end. So I'll use the PQ for a lot of low end tailoring. I said before the Buzz REQ 2.2, it's smooth. I always say it's smooth like butter. It basically, anything you need to EQ, if you need to bring out something, it just brings out this beautiful presence. The Golly Porter Grinder, I use it as a mid-side EQ, and you know I can really kind of shape my stereo image using the Porter Grinder. Also with the Porter Grinder, it's a very, very soft and subtle EQ. You got plus, what is that, +6, -6, and you can go +6 and it doesn't feel like enough. You could go more. You couldn't have a Porter Grinder, for instance, as your only EQ. So the thing with EQs is, you know, I've got the way I run my chain is I run into the I have like the starting section of the chain. I then run into my EQs. I go into all of the EQs. So it is basically one big EQ going Kush, Clariphonic, Vertigo, PQ, Golly Porter Grinder, the Buzz REQ, and then over into the Mus EQ, the Alicia. So I'll go into all of them. So it's one big EQ. Now, the thing with this is that everything's doing its own particular thing. So I know I wouldn't be able to achieve the result that I do achieve if I was to, let's say, just use one EQ, just use the Buzz REQ, or just use the PQ. You know, I could certainly get by with just one EQ, but I don't need to just have one EQ. I can have what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You know, 6, 7, 8 if you include the dynamic EQs. So like for me, it's very important to have multiple EQs for the purpose of being able to go, right, well, I want to do add air on this one. I want to do low mids on the PQ. I want to then do stereo imaging and increasing the mid and side on the Porter Grinder. I then want to smooth everything out, and I kind of want to bring out a presence using the PQ. I then want to go over into the Mus EQ, use that in mid-side and kind of pull out and reshape the sound. So there's every single piece of equipment that's in this chain has a specific purpose, and it's important for me to understand each piece of equipment. And I've over the period of a long period of time tailored my chain to include specific things that bring something to this EQ, basically. So you could almost talk of this as like probably like, I don't know, 15, 20 band EQ. And could you do the exact same thing using something like FabFilter Pro Q3? Of course, you've got 20 bands that you could do. The difference is there is something like Pro Q3 would just sound a certain way. So the difference here is that if I did like a 6 dB boost on the Buzz, at a certain frequency, and I copied that exact same frequency and exact same range onto the Porter grinder, they would sound totally different. The PQ would sound totally different. Each one has this unique characteristic, and that's why I have so many EQs in my chain, is because every single piece of equipment here has a unique property in this mastering chain. So yeah, that is why I have probably 10, I don't know, 8 different EQs in a mastering chain.